ton of questions here. This is good. The questions are going to be broken up. We have broad categories of domestic, international economy. As we go through, I'm going to mix up how people answer, orders and things like that. For the opening statements, they're each going to get a max of 3 minutes. And they're going to be invited to actually come to the podium. So it'll be official. And then they get to go back and sit down. And then after that, we'll ask questions. If you have additional questions as we're going along, we've got people in each of the aisles. You can just raise your hand if you need a card, if you've got something to hand to them. Back here as well, we've got people, so raise your hands and your cards will be coming to you. Okay? So, to start off, let us bring in Rob Cornilles for the first opening statement.
Thank you. I want to thank Pacific University as well as Jim for putting on this forum, and I certainly want to thank all of you for spending the time and having the interest in our community to be here. My name is Rob Cornilles. I do want to object to having to stand behind the podium. I think it puts Suzanne and I at an unfair advantage. You can see us, but Suzanne, we'll persevere, shall we? I appreciate the dialogue we've already had here today, and I'm looking forward to the questions that follow. I am a small business owner. I live in Tualatin. I started a company 16 years ago out of a spare bedroom in my house. I am not a lawyer turned politician turned congressional candidate. I am simply someone who has been very involved in my community, serving on boards such as the Special Olympics of Oregon, serving on the foundation of Virginia Garcia Memorial Health Centers, one of those located very close to where we are today, serving on the board of the Oregon League of Minority Voters. I am a father of 3 sons, and my wife Allison, who's here in the front row with me, she and I have been married 25 years. When we started our business, we had a hope. We had a dream that we could actually turn an idea into some prosperity, not only for our family, but for the people that we would bring on. And now I am very disheartened by the fact that in this country, if you consider all of the unemployed, if you consider all of the underemployed, if you consider all of those who don't have enough work, and all those who have actually decided to put aside looking for a job anymore, according to most estimates, it numbers around 30 million people. 30 million people in our country that are suffering right now because of high unemployment. That's nearly 8 Oregons, ladies and gentlemen. Can you imagine 8 Oregons being in that type of predicament? And why are we here? I think it's because we don't have enough people in Congress today who know how to, first of all, start a job, stick to a budget, meet a payroll, make tough decisions, find a way to cooperate with one another to come up with solutions, and then to roll up their sleeves and get to work. There's too much gamesmanship, too much partisanship happening in Washington, D.C. today. And while they're having fun playing their political games, which largely they learned early on in their political careers, we in Oregon are suffering. For 15 straight years, our state has been above the national average in unemployment. It's absolutely shameful when you consider the wonderful people that we have in this district and in the state, as well as the wonderful assets we've been blessed with. And on this day, I'm very excited to be able to converse with you, as well as hear the various ideas and thoughts of these candidates to see who you believe is best equipped, has the best experience and skill sets to lead our district to a better future. I'm excited to be the champion for you in the 1st District in Congress, because right now we don't have a voice in Congress, and hopefully with your help we can change that very soon. Thank you. Thank
you. Jim, and to Pacific University, and to all of you that came to this great public forum tonight, I want to thank you very much for having all of us on both sides of the aisle here. I am Brad Avakian. I am not a guy who likes spinning his wheels. When it comes to the issues that affect the people of Northwest Oregon, I take action with conviction, and I get the job done for us. Right now, Northwest Oregon needs a leader in Congress that can get the job done for us, putting our people back to work again. And that begins with my proposal for a 21st century WPA program. You know, we have got 30 million people in this country that aren't working enough hours to make ends meet for themselves and their families. Let's put folks back to work, rebuilding our bridges and our roads, retrofitting our buildings with green technology, and let's start with a new electrical grid for the country. And I'll be a leader that will get the job done for us, protecting our Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and our social safety net. You know, not long ago, I met a woman in Washington County that really taught me a lot about how just important that is. I walked up the pathway to her home. In the front yard, there were 2 kids playing. Tattered shorts, shaved heads, distended bellies, the kind of thing you'd see in a third world country, right here in Washington County. And as I talked to her at the doorstep, I was talking to her about education and the economy, and I could tell right away that's just not where she was at. So we talked about her kids, and we talked about her family. And as I said goodbye in turn, she said to me, "You know what I really need?" And I said, "What?" She said, "Something to eat." I went straight back to the office. I called the food bank, so at least that one family was helped. But that is right here in Washington County, Oregon. We need those programs, and I'm going to fight to make sure that we keep them. You know, I spent my career right here in Northwest Oregon as a civil rights lawyer, fighting for people who had suffered injustice. In fact, Debbie, my wife Debbie, raise your hand, Debbie, will you? My wife Debbie and I both grew up in Northwest Oregon here. In fact, we met when we were 16 years old in Tom Hughes civics class at Lowell High School. And we raised our son Nathan and our daughter Claire here as well. In the state Senate and in the state House, I took action on the issues that were most important to Northwest Oregonians by writing and passing Oregon's Renewable Energy Act that has made us a leader in green jobs, the first expansion of Oregon's bottle bill in nearly 4 decades, the bill kicking abusive payday lenders out of the state of Oregon, and as your labor commissioner, the bill that next year will begin restoring shop classes to our middle schools and high schools. Like I have done all along for you, I will roll up my sleeves, get to work, and get the job done in Congress for us. Thank you.
My website is jimgreenfieldforcongress.com. Our nation is in a severe crisis right now. This is not like ordinary recessions of the past. If we don't turn around, we are in a long-term decline, and I think most people sense that. I know a lot of people who have lost jobs, lost their homes, or their businesses. I'm sure most of you know people like that also. Why is this happening? Well, there was a guy who a couple hundred years ago gave us a pretty good insight in what creates this kind of problem and chaos. A fellow by the name of Thomas Jefferson, the author of the Declaration of Independence, and he said, "I am for a government vigorously frugal and simple." Frugal, you know what that means? It means you don't spend a lot of money. I am for a government vigorously frugal and simple to preserve the people's independence. We must not let our rulers load us with perpetual debt. For this is the tendency of all human governments, till the bulk of society is reduced to be mere automatons of misery. Then it begins indeed the war of all against all. And the forehorse of this frightful team is public debt. You get that? That's the problem. The problem isn't that people in Washington are arguing with each other. He says taxation follows debt, and in its train, wretchedness and oppression. That's where we're headed if we don't turn it around. Unfortunately, all the Democrats who are running for this office, and my opponent, Rob Cornilles, in the Republican primary, support the very kinds of policies which created this crisis. More government spending, more bureaucracy, borrowing more money. growing government. Government's already consuming 25% of GDP, the highest level in history. Do you think we're going to solve the problem by growing government even bigger? I don't see how anybody could think that anymore. That is the problem. We need to shrink the government, shrink the bureaucracy. Rob Cornilles and the Democrats think we need to raise taxes. That's going to take more money out of the private sector. The private sector is shrinking. We only have 11 million people employed in manufacturing anymore. 19 million employed by the government at the federal, state, and local level. We need to reverse those numbers. And we're not going to do it by growing the government bureaucracy. That's JimGreenfieldForCongress.com.
Thank you so much. I'm Suzanne Bonamici, and I'm running for Congress. You know, when I say those words, I think about my grandparents. I wonder what it would be like for them to think about their granddaughter running for the U.S. Congress. Years ago, they came over here on a boat from Italy. They came through Ellis Island looking for a better life. My grandparents and my parents kept it simple. Work hard, play by the rules, and never be afraid to do the right thing. And those values are a big part about why I'm running for Congress. And I've lived those values through the choices that I've made my whole life. I worked my way through college working at legal aid, helping families who were in financial trouble because they lost a job or a spouse, or because they had medical bills they couldn't pay. Then I worked as a consumer protection attorney at the Federal Trade Commission, where I stood up to a mortgage company who was committing fraud, and that fraud was causing people to lose their homes. I took them on and they were held accountable. Then back home in Oregon, I helped small business owners who were taken advantage of by corporations who misled them. I represented a small business owner against a big oil company, ensuring that he didn't lose the entire life savings that he had invested and earned. And as a legislator, I'm proud to be known as someone who stands up for consumers, for small businesses, for middle-class families, and for those who are struggling to get ahead, fighting for opportunity and a fair playing field, defending and strengthening public education, pre-K through college, making it easier for small businesses to access the capital they need to thrive and grow jobs right here in Oregon. And I'm proud that my work has been recognized. The Oregon League of Conservation Voters gave me the Protector of Children's Health Award for work I did to reduce pesticide use in schools. And in endorsing me for Congress, the Oregon Nurses Association said, I've been an effective leader, not just as a legislator, but as someone who has stood up for families her entire career. And earlier this year, the Willamette League surveys area legislators, and in their survey, they gave me the highest score for integrity. And that matters to me a lot. So I want to tell you two things. First, I'm running to help restore these values and these priorities to a Congress that seems to have forgotten them. To focus on creating jobs, getting people back to work in our communities, helping small businesses thrive, and to keep our promises to seniors on the Social Security and Medicare that they've earned through a lifetime of hard work, and to strengthen our public schools. And second, I'll bring this guiding principle to Congress. Restore opportunity for those who work hard and play by the rules, and hold accountable those who don't, no matter how powerful they are. That's the America my grandparents crossed an ocean for, and that's why I'm running for Congress.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us here today. Some of you might find me slightly familiar. I'm often seen, if you're clicking channels on cable access, I am often there chatting about relationships, G-rated relationships. And also, most recently, as Live with Lisa Michaels. I've been doing that 5 hours a week, every week for the last 52 weeks a year for the last 6 years in the Beaverton and TBC-TV area. Who is Lisa Michaels? I was born and raised in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Taos, New Mexico. My parents were divorced. Went to high school, the same high school that Mitt Romney went to up in Michigan, Cranbrook, Kingswood. Then went to college and earned my Bachelor of Science degree from the University of Kansas, where I'm proud to say my 2 sons are following in my footsteps and are currently at the University of Kansas right now. And I have a younger son who's 13 years old, moved to California, met my ex-husband who was a native Oregonian. He grew up and graduated from Sunset High School. I think he was voted best all around, so at least I had decent taste in him at some point. And then I I started getting involved in politics, which I think is people's most concerned about it. I got involved in San Francisco. Now, San Francisco's a lot like Oregon. It's very, very liberal. I was working at a radio station on downtown San Francisco, and this good friend of mine, she was a rabid, screaming liberal, and she was so passionate about her views. I said, well, I'm a conservative. So I went out and found the call center to make phone calls to re-elect Ronald Reagan in 1984. So after making phone calls, I got an invitation to the big party on election night at the St. Francis Hotel. And so I wrote on it, Ron and Nancy want you there. And I Xeroxed it off, and I passed it out to all the liberals at the radio station. You can imagine how popular I was. It was a lot of fun. The only person at the radio station that was a conservative was the owner. No doubt about that. So in any case, I started there, and I continued to make phone calls every election for the Republican that was running for Congress. And then I moved up here to Oregon, and I got involved in politics. I was on a TV show called Around Town. It was a show about where to go and eat in Portland and Coin TV in the mid-90s. And then in 2000, I ran for my first race. I ran for the state legislature. And then I unfortunately did not win, and ran also again in 2008 for the state Senate. And I've run for Parks and Rec. I was also on the board of Murray Hill Little League, the Little League group that went all the way to the World Series. Now, why am I wanting to run right now? Because our company is in, our country is in dire straits. So I'm for less taxes, less government regulations, so that we can create more jobs. Thank you again. I'm Lisa Michaels, and I'm running for Congress.
She got a graph too. Brad Witt. Now, you have to know that when these guys go and talk to groups, they set them alphabetically. So he's usually last. That was unintentional this time. We'll try to make that before.
The last shall be first.
The last shall be first.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to present my candidacy for Oregon's 1st Congressional District this evening. I'm Brad Witt, a 4-term state legislator. I'm running for Congress to be the voice and advocate for those things that will make a positive difference in the everyday lives of my constituents, other Oregonians, and the rest of America. Things like good jobs, to get Americans back to work, a clean and healthy environment to keep Oregon a special place, an education system that is second to none, that provides rewarding careers for our students and global competitiveness for our employers, and serves as an economic base for our state's revival. A woman's right to choose, because it is her right and it is her choice. A financially solid Social Security and Medicare system that guarantees benefits to those who have earned them over an entire lifetime of work. And last but certainly not least, an end to the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan to get our nation back on track to world peace and a balanced budget. After 3.5 years of the longest and deepest recession since the Great Depression, I am convinced that the only way back to prosperity is through the creation of more good jobs. We simply cannot tax or cut our way back to prosperity. My Rebuild America program is a call to action to invest now in the upgrade and modernization of our nation's energy generation and transmission capacities so that America will have the smartest grid in the world, our multimodal transportation system so that we can get our economy moving once again, our communications network so every community in America, including my own, has access to high-speed internet, and our public buildings so that we can begin saving energy and taxpayer money through efficiencies. By creating the world's most modern and streamlined facilities, we will put America back to work, rebuild our nation's infrastructure, and get our economy back on track. These are the issues that Oregonians want addressed. These are the issues that will make a positive difference in their everyday lives, and these are the issues that I want to be your voice and advocate for as Oregon's next congressman. Thank you.
I've had my crack team of undergraduates sorting questions, so we're ready to go. What I thought I'd do is I would start with something that's happening right now. Occupy Wall Street. Messages, some clear, some not, but Occupy Wall Street is now taking place here in the 1st Congressional District. They moved for the Portland Marathon, but they're back. And so what I'd like to do is start with each of you on what do you think of the Occupy Wall Street movement? Are they a legitimate social movement trying to widen the national debate? A wild mob of beatniks? What do you think? Jim Greenfield, start with you.
I think, you know, it's understandable why they're out there. I mean, the economy is so bad and there's so many people out of work. That tends to give rise to social unrest. I probably shouldn't acknowledge this since I'm running in the Republican primary, but back in the 1960s, I was out there protesting against the war in Vietnam. I was a Democrat until Jimmy Carter helped to convert me. But you know, I understand these people now. Now, some of them may be a little misguided in their understanding of what the real problems are. The focus should be on what government policies are creating our national. It's almost a depression. I mean, if you add the more than 9% official unemployment rate to the 7% additional people who aren't counted because they gave up looking for work, we have unemployment rates now that are comparable to the Great Depression. So certainly it's not surprising that you're going to get people who are frustrated, that are going to be out there protesting, and I guess if they don't have jobs, they don't have anything else to do. But the solution has got to be to get the private sector working again, to get these people back to work. Then they won't have time to go out and protest because they'll be busy.
Okay, Rob Cornilles, you want to weigh in?
Sure. If they're protesting the fact that Wall Street bankers can get away with what they've gotten away with to hurt Americans and to hurt Oregonians specifically, if they're protesting the fact that mega corporations who have friends in high places, General Electric being one example, can have a $14.1 billion profit last year and pay 0 federal income taxes, if they're protesting the fact that General Electric, which had a subsidiary here in Washington County 3 years ago and took that business to China. In fact, I know about this because just yesterday one of their former employees approached me at an event in Sherwood. If that's what they're protesting, I join them. We need significant tax simplification in this country that's fairer, that's more predictable, that does not reward those who have friends in high places. Too many mega corporations right now are using our federal tax code as a tax evasion scheme as opposed to a job creation scheme. Too many decisions are being made based on how can we best avoid taxes as opposed to how can we grow our industry, our company, and thus jobs. So we need people in Congress who have the will, who have the political courage to go back and reform the tax system that will create the certainty that industry needs so as to create jobs for Oregonians back home.
Okay, Suzanne Bonamici.
Thank you. I actually saw the faces of the people. I was working downtown and I walked down to see who was there, to see what they were concerned about. They were young and old, and they were legitimately concerned. They were concerned about their future. And I have a history of standing up for economic fairness, and so I heard their message. I saw their signs. And I know that what they're looking for is someone who isn't afraid to take on powerful interests. And I have a history of doing that, from my work at the Federal Trade Commission to my work in the legislature. I will work for economic fairness. I'm glad that they have the opportunity for free speech, because in all countries they couldn't do that. And I appreciate that about the United States of America. But I do know that they're concerned. They're concerned about their retirement. They're concerned about jobs. And I'll work hard to address those concerns and to make sure that they have jobs and that they have a secure future as your next representative in Congress.
Right about you.
Well, it's a clear sign, and it's no surprise to anybody here that people are angry. And you know what? I'm angry about it too. It's one of the reasons many, many months ago, when I knew we didn't have strong leadership in Congress, I stepped up and challenged our current congressman while he was still a sitting congressman, because action needed to be taken. Now, I was down there the first day in Portland when people gathered. I went down there to protest with them. I talked to one fellow who was a carpenter who hadn't worked in months. And he's not just angry at Wall Street corporations that are not paying their fair share of the taxes. The guy is scared. He doesn't know where his next paycheck is going to come from. He doesn't see folks that are willing to help him out. He sees a Congress sitting on its hands when we have infrastructure projects he could be working at and not helping him get back to work. It's an expression of free speech, but it's also an expression that the folks need a voice. And I think they're doing it in a strong and an appropriate way, and I support their efforts completely. What I want to see happen now is for Congress to get off its hands, pass a 21st Century WPA program, and put the people back to work.
Thank you. Lisa Michaels.
Thank you.
I didn't get to show you this. I just wanted to show you this. This is vitally important. The red lines are years in which the Congress was controlled by the Republicans. It goes up, as you can see, because that's job creation. When the Democrats got control of Congress, it leveled off and plummeted. We've got to have a Republican in Congress. The definition of insanity is do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. I've spoken at Tea Party movements down in front of the Capitol building. I know the Tea Party movements, and this is no Tea Party movement. This Occupy Portland thing, I believe, is part of a bigger plan to, there was 9 rules of communist revolution that I've committed to memory. One of them was foment strikes in vital industries, encourage soft and lenient attitude towards the strikers by the government. This was written in 1919 in Dusseldorf, Germany. It was discovered in a raid. I believe all of these 9 ones, you should check it out on the internet. You can see me speaking in front of the Capitol building on these issues. I did a let's take the high road counter rally against the Occupy Portland on Thursday, and Devin and some of my other supporters, we were up there on Sylvan Overpass. I figured that was the highest road in the district. I put up my 3x10 banner and we waved to people, and people were honking as they were listening to the radio and listening to the anarchists downtown. A lot of them are well-meaning, and they were probably thinking this was kind of like a Tea Party, but it is no Tea Party. Thank you.
Brad Whit.
Thank you. I was present at the General Assembly Friday evening when Occupy Portland decided that they were not going to move. And I think that they are a natural outgrowth of the economic paralysis that so many of the middle class are facing in America today. Long-term unemployment, 3 million foreclosures across our nation, the most unequal income distribution that our nation has seen since the eve of the Great Depression. And as a result of all of this, a middle class that is in decline. Those folks that are down there in Portland and in many of the major cities across our country are a harbinger. They're the heart and soul of our country. They have a message to deliver us. Unemployment is not working.
Thank you. So if I could just summarize, we have 5 of you saying that what we're seeing is some kind of a legitimate grievance kind of thing, and then Lisa comes in with it's more of a conspiracy, not quite the Tea Party.
It's sponsored by special groups.
It's sponsored by special groups, okay?
Like
I want to make sure.
Soros.
I want to focus on the Republicans at this point. If you're a Republican candidate these days, and for about the past 20 years, you have to sign a lot of pledges. And so what I'd like to do is just go quickly from Rob to Jim to Lisa. Will you sign Grover Norquist's pledge not to increase revenue? And throw in what you think about the Ryan budget proposal in Congress right now.
You said it's a pledge not to increase revenue? Is that,
Well, that's what this says, taxes.
Yeah, that's
Taxes, anti-tax, that's what Grover's all about.
right. They are completely
And he
different.
kind of looks like me, but we're not the same person. Yeah.
I don't sign other people's pledges. I have one pledge, and that's to the people of the district that have elected me, and the oath that I would take from the Constitution. I don't let other people put words in my mouth. I'll be my own man. That's one of the problems we've had in this district for too long, is that we had a congressman who voted in Congress 98% of the time with his own party. I refuse to be that type of elected representative. I would also add, as it relates to tax increases, what we need is a fairer tax system by lowering the rates across the board and also eliminating loopholes. If you do that, then certain companies such as GE that I referenced previously, they will not be able to turn the tax code into a profit center. They will actually have to pay the kind of taxes that small businesses like mine is forced to pay because I don't have the resources to hire big-time attorneys, lobbyists, and to rub shoulders with the president. If you call that a tax increase because they're avoiding loopholes, so be it. Your second question was on the Ryan plan. I have not read the Ryan plan in its entirety, but I think that is a clever way of asking what someone thinks about Social Security. The bottom line is I do not believe in privatizing Social Security. The people in this country have spoken on that. I think the elected officials have realized that's not going to work. Right now there's two plans essentially. One is to let Social Security go bankrupt by doing nothing, by allowing it to just continue on its present course, and the other is to take it totally private. I think that somewhere in between, I think you create an opportunity rather to allow people more choice, and it would be nice if just once this Congress and this President would take the recommendations that were given in the Bowles-Simpson report last year and use that as a starting point. I don't recommend every tenet of that particular commission report, but I think it's a starting point. This would get us to the table and come up with real solutions in Washington.
I'm glad you asked about the pledges, because this is one of the clearest distinction between Rob Cornilles and me, which I think is going to be important to Republican voters.
There are many distinctions.
One is that he's better looking, but I'm smarter. I'm just kidding. He's a very smart guy. I respect him. I just don't agree with him on the issues. By the time he's my age, he won't be better looking anymore either. On the pledges, you know, Rob says, "Oh, I don't sign pledges." Well, that's an excuse. There's a reason why voters want politicians to sign pledges. And what is that? Because politicians lie. Gee, is that news? The voters want to know that if you say you're going to do something, you're going to stick with it. And if you sign that pledge, it makes it very hard to wiggle out of it. So on the Republican side, we have the Americans for Tax Reform has the No New Tax Pledge. It has been signed by 278 Republicans in Congress. Every single Republican in the House, except for the 6 most liberal Republicans, every single Republican in the House, except for 6, has signed the No New Tax Pledge. Jim Greenfield have signed the No New Tax Pledge. Rob Cornilles has refused to sign it. Why? Well, maybe it's for the same reason that Rob brags that he's been endorsed by a lot of Democratic mayors. I haven't been endorsed by any Democratic mayors. I won't be endorsed by any Democratic mayors because I'm a Republican and I believe in Republican principles of limited government and lower taxes. Now, Rob's explanation is found on his website where he says, if we have a balanced budget amendment, it will be necessary to, quote unquote, severely raise taxes. Raise taxes? I don't think so. We don't need to raise taxes. We need to cut government spending. Rob has also refused to sign another important pledge, important Republicans, the pledge from the Club for Growth to repeal Obamacare. Not a single Republican in Congress voted for Obamacare. Not one. Not even Susan Collins from Maine voted for that one. Rob is not willing to take a commitment to vote to repeal Obamacare, and he's running in the Republican primary. Maybe Rob should run in the Democratic primary. So, yes, I have signed both those pledges. And as to privatizing Social Security, there's a very simple solution to this. Well, it's not simple, but there is a solution. People, for younger workers, not for people who are at retirement or almost there, they just stay in the system we have. For people who are younger, give them a choice. You want to stay in the government-run system? Fine, you can stay in it and have that security. If you'd rather take that money and instead of paying the taxes to the government, and if you're smart, that's what you'll do. If you'd rather take that money, put it into an IRA or a 401k, a private retirement account, manage it yourself, you're going to be a lot richer when you retire if you do that. Right? If you know, you have a choice. Who can have a problem with that? Why shouldn't we give people a choice?
Let's let Lisa go, and then you can sign or not sign anything you want.
Bravo, bravo, yes. We have got to elect a conservative Republican to go to Washington, D.C. I'm a conservative, Jim's a conservative. Well, this is very, very important. You know, all due respect, less than a year ago, he lost by double digits to the crazy Congressman Wu. Do we really think it's a good idea to renominate the guy? I'm sorry. I really am sorry, Rob. I do like you a lot, but it's antithetical to me. Okay. I would definitely, I'm in complete agreement with you. I will sign a no new taxes pledge and a repeal of abomination care right away. It is destroying businesses. Businesses cannot plan for their future. Businesses cannot plan to hire people so that we can have more jobs because they have no idea what their health care expenses are going to be going forward. They are now trying to establish a foundation for essential services that they're going to require everybody to have. Government needs to get out of our back pocket. Government needs to get out of our bedrooms. Government needs to get out of our households and let us live and pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as our Constitution was founded and as our Constitution mandates. And we need to repatriate the Constitution of the United States. I'm Lisa Michaels. Thank you.
Thank you. Rob, yes, you may.
I apologize that you three have to see this.
Don't worry, they'll get their chance.
We have a little matter here we need to take care of. If you consider Jim and Lisa a Republican who's independent enough not to take his cues from any special interests that writes a pledge based on their own particular biases, if you consider that bad for Oregon, then you and I have a different view of things. Also, as it relates to Obamacare, I think, Jim, you need to read the website a little more closely because you're a smart guy, but you must have skimmed it. Let me be very clear where I stand. The question was, would you have voted for Obamacare? The answer is no, for many reasons I'd be happy to discuss today, Jim. The next question is, would you vote to repeal Obamacare? And by the way, I just have to say, in case I don't get the opportunity, the reason why I would not have voted for Obamacare is because it addressed access but did not address cost, as evidenced by the fact that everyone's premium this year continues to go up. And there's more evidence that it's a bad bill. It's also evidenced by the fact that we continue to have companies that are not hiring because of the ramifications of Obamacare that they are afraid of. Now, it can be fixed. Now, the reason I didn't vote to repeal it is very simple. Repealing it was an exercise of gamesmanship in Congress this year, a pox on both their houses. Instead of using this valuable time in 2011 to actually fix our health care problem as a country, we have a party that even though they knew, and I'm speaking of my own party, even though they knew it could not pass the Senate, and if it did, for some reason, pass the Senate, they knew the president would never sign it, they spent valuable time and resources trying to repeal it. Excuse my pragmatism, but I don't think that's a good use of your time as taxpayers. I think we need to go back and fix problems, not do things just so we can check a box to tell a special interest that we've done what they asked us to do. That's not the kind of congressman I'll be, that's not the kind of congressman we need, and that's not what we especially need in this particular district to provide job growth and real leadership in Congress today.
Can I give a one-sentence retort?
No. But thank you. Yeah, they're applauding the retort that they know would have been out there.
Because you project so well.
Let's shift to the Democratic side of the table here. And let's, Brad Witt, I'm going to address this first to you, and then we'll have all of you weigh in on this. Congress is attempting to revitalize our economy through bailout, stimulus funding, lots of debt's been incurred because of that. Unemployment still is 9%. Oregon, hey, you know, the last recession we were worst. Now we're only like 10th from the bottom. So hey, yay for us in the recession. But it's brutal, and we're moving towards a double-dip recession, it looks like. So what would you propose in Congress? The president has looked at further stimulus spending, but clearly getting that to pass in Congress is tough right now. He's got the jobs idea that's out there. Brian has said that they're going to take parts of that, maybe. What would you do in Congress to really deal with this recession? Let's start with you.
The economic crisis that we find ourselves in is due largely to a consumption crisis. The average American consumer cannot spend in the economy, and 70% of our nation's economy is made up of consumer expenditures. Those folks who don't have a job or who are unemployed, underemployed, can't be spending in our stores, can't be spending supporting our local businesses, can't be spending anywhere in our economy. Nor are they a source of revenue for state or local governments. The entire problem is due to the fact that people don't have enough employment. We need more good jobs. My answer is my Rebuild America program. Rebuild our nation's critical infrastructure. Get Americans back to work, earning good paychecks, and in the process, setting our nation back on a path to economic prosperity.
Brad Mackey.
You know, just like the carpenter I mentioned a little earlier, it wasn't that long ago I was at the dispatch center for the electricians, and some fella came out of the dispatch hall. He had a 3-year-old kid in one arm. His wife was with him. He had been in to see whether or not there was a job that he was going to get sent to that day. And once again, there was nothing for him. He had even brought his father with him that day, who was a retired electrician, just for a little support. It was a wonderful family, but it was a family without a paycheck. And this fella is not looking for a stimulus package that's going to get him back to work for 3 weeks. He needs long-term security. There's over 200,000 people in this state right now that either are not working full-time or they're not working enough hours to make ends meet. The Obama Jobs Plan gives about $50 billion for infrastructure projects around the country. That's a little over $400 million for the state of Oregon. Not enough money to build one bridge. It equates to 5,500 jobs for Oregon, when we've got 200,000 people that need a job. It is a very, very small step in the right direction. And it's why I have been proposing a 21st century WPA program, a refocusing of the federal attention onto rebuilding the infrastructure of the country. I don't want millions of government jobs created. I want the federal funds to flow through local, small, and medium-sized businesses, contractors that can hire people for a series of infrastructure jobs, providing long-term security for Oregon families. That's the kind of big thinking that we need in this country right now that we're not getting either from the President or from Congress.
Thank you. We absolutely need to get people back to work. And we're all talking about infrastructure. I agree, we need people building our roads, our bridges, our electrical grids, and our water systems. But that isn't going to bring a job to everybody. What about all the women who don't work in construction jobs and the people who have small businesses? I've been working in the state legislature on getting access to capital for small businesses so they can thrive, create, and keep jobs right here in Oregon. And I'll be working on at least a few ways to do that at the federal level. With the credit unions and their member benefit level, they can really open up capital and get a lot of loans out there to small businesses if we can get that bill through Congress. I'll be working with the Small Business Administration to make sure that we have the public-private partnerships we need to get loans to small businesses all across our district and all across the state. We also have some Oregon innovative projects here that I'll be working on in Congress, bringing these ideas to Oregon, from Oregon to Washington. Like pool schools, the bill that we passed in the last session, to retrofit our schools so that they're more energy efficient. That'll get people to work right away and make our schools more energy efficient so that their costs will go down. And we need to keep improving our system of public education, because as we graduate those creative, innovative thinkers of tomorrow, they'll be creating new jobs and new ideas that will get people back to work. And finally, we must reduce the cost of health care. Now, we've started doing that in Oregon at the state level with the transformation bill and the exchange bills that went through the last session. We can do that on a national level. If we start having more community care centers and primary care homes so that people stop getting their health care in emergency rooms, that cost is shifted to everyone else, that's going to drive down costs of health care, and that's going to help get people back to work.
One of the things, I want to stick with this question for just a second. One of the things that, especially Jeff Mapes loves to write about in the Oregonian, is that you three have very similar views on a lot of issues, but it's a matter of style, personal style, and working in Congress and that kind of thing. What I'd like you to do in 15 seconds, I'm going to start with you, Brad, with what is different about your answer and what you would do to solve this economic problem than your two opponents. 15 seconds.
My focus is principally on getting Americans back to work, and the focus is on construction, get that money in the economy quickly, get people employed, and get our economy back up and running.
Okay, Brad?
The biggest difference is I'm not talking about things I want to do. I'm talking about things I already have a record of accomplishment on. I want Oregon and this country to have the best trained, most skilled workforce in the nation, and that's why I brought the bill last session to return shop classes to our middle schools and high schools.
Suzanne?
I've also talked about things that I've accomplished at the state level, but my answer was comprehensive and included both short-term and long-term solutions.
Excellent. 15 seconds. They're right on there. That's good. This is going to be a question for all of you. When you look back over the past more or less 30 years in this district, and going back 40 years, the Republicans had it forever, and then lost it in the Watergate tidal wave of 1974. It's been a Democratic hand ever since. But every member of Congress, especially since World War II, has held this seat, has gone to Congress for the reasons that you're talking about. It's jobs, it's what do we get for the district in terms of national issues, but they had to vote on things that they knew very little about, mainly foreign policy. We've heard from you in the endorsement session about free trade agreements and that kind of thing. But what I'd like to do is put out a question to you specifically about foreign policy. And the reason I do this is David Wu had to vote on whether or not we should go to war in Afghanistan and Iraq. Les Acoy had to vote on whether or not we would go invade Iraq the first time in 1991. Elizabeth Furs was around when we were authorizing things in the House about whether or not we should go to the former Yugoslavia, those kinds of things. So you will have to vote on those kinds of things. So let's look at the easy one out there, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I'll give you 2 minutes each. What do you see as potential solutions to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? 2 minutes. So that's 12 minutes. So there, I think we're doing better than the UN, right there. Okay? Rob, we'll start with you.
Well, first of all, Israel needs to know that we're a reliable partner. And we can talk a lot about how we support Israel as a country, as a Congress, even as candidates. But it's very interesting to me that every time I speak to the Jewish people about this particular issue, Jim, invariably in their comments, they plead for a way to find peace. That word peace is always coming out of their mouth. They're not asking for more, they're simply asking for their rightful place to be recognized as a sovereign state, and then they're asking for peace with their neighbors. Unfortunately, when you hear the Palestinian people talk about this issue, the word peace never comes out of their mouth. It's instead, it's basically around extinction of the Jewish state, the state of Israel. The state of Israel needs to know that America and those who represent America in elected office understand its rightful place. It's also interesting to me that the Arab world had opportunities to actually take land in the agreements, the treaties that were put forth previously in the past century, and they walked away from those treaties. Now they're asking for that land back, and they're asking for more. We need to stand by our partners. We cannot be tepid in this. We cannot be gray in this. And I'm afraid that too often in the last 3 years, we've seen an administration that has not told the world that this very critical partner of ours in the Middle East, Israel, is our friend, and we will stand by them through thick and thin. When that is understood, we will be able to protect Israel as they have protected our interests as well.
Brad Witt.